Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started. My name's Kelsey Live. You probably all know that. I'm the SIG Network Coordinator. And you may or may not know that my background's a little different as well. So I did not study education. My undergraduate degree is in arts and my master's degree is in nonprofit management. So I think there's a lot of interdisciplinary kind of parallels that we can learn from each other. And I'll be sharing a couple of examples from the nonprofit world today. I hope you'll be open to sharing your stories and experience as well. So I'd love for this to just be kind of a workshop atmosphere where we can all learn from each other. And it looks like we're a small enough group. So if anyone would like to hop off their mic or say in the chat, you could go ahead and share your name, state, and what interests you in shorthand, what you would like to learn, what brings you here today.
I'll break the ice for you, Kelsey. This is Annette Young in Montana. And my interest in shorthand is I've started to dabble and I love it more than I even envisioned. But I really want just a great visual to be able to put in story format the work of Montana's SIP, and this is going to be an awesome platform to do that.
Great, I love it. Anyone else have some thoughts about how they use shorthand?
Yeah, similar to Annette in Wyoming, I'm Milka Hawk in the state of Colorado. And we want to be able to feature our bright spots with the districts implementing the work from our SPDG and MTSS and all of those pieces. And so we want to use it to highlight their work and our work as well. So we're looking forward to being able to utilize this great platform.
Wonderful. And something I love there is kind of the celebratory nature of that too. Stories, we react so well as humans to stories that are positive and uplifting. They're more memorable. They leave us wanting to do things, wanting to take action. So that's a really wonderful thing to hear. Anyone else?
Hi, it's Jackie Lister from Pennsylvania. And agree, but I love to tell stories. So I think I'm just excited about this being a part of what we could use to share some of our great stories.
Great, great. Love it. So I'll be touching on that storytelling aspect today and talking a little bit about visual communication. Oh, great. I see that in the chat too. That's perfect. So we'll talk a little bit about communication, and anytime we talk about visual communication, I think we should also touch on accessibility. Since shorthand is so visual of a platform, there's a few tips and tricks I've found that help for things like screen readers and just making sure that it's visible for everyone. So I'll give a brief overview today, and then we can kind of dive into the dashboard and see what we want to play with. So I'd initially added in a Mentimeter here, but since we're a smaller group, I think it's great sometimes just to hear what people say rather than do all the technical things we possibly can do. So if you have any questions, any thoughts you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to come off mic and speak up, or feel free to throw it in the chat. That works well too. I'll keep an eye on both. So here's what I was thinking so far about how SPDGs might find shorthand to be useful. You may have noticed that SIG Network has switched to their newsletter format in shorthand. I just find it to be really quick and simple and visually powerful, so I like it. Things like presentations like this. And finally, resources. So anything you want to make a quick visual and then share and distribute to your audience, I think shorthand would be really useful for you there. And I found this great quote from the Bridgespan group. This is an organization that consults with nonprofit organizations. So they said, whenever you're trying to influence someone's behavior, you have to ask yourself first, what story is in their brain? What stories are they holding on to that make them behave the way that they do? And if I want to change that, you need to ask yourself, what new story can I give them? So an example that comes to mind is when I was asked to consult with a nonprofit organization here in town that promotes relationships between local businesses and artists. And the question they came to me with was, why aren't businesses into this idea? Why aren't they gung-ho about collaborating with artists? They also came to me with this kind of position, an assumption that they had already made, that artists are always asking for things from businesses. They're asking for funding, they're asking for money, in-kind donations, space to show their work. And businesses were just kind of feeling like they were bled dry from giving all these things. And local businesses don't necessarily have a lot of finances or extra funds to share. So they felt like that was the issue. So that's what some might call an anchor. That's this assumption that they're basing their solution off of. But when I went and spoke to some local businesses, I found that this wasn't necessarily the case. A lot of them said, we would love to support the arts. We see how it's good for our PR, it's good for our community, it's a win-win-win situation. But what exactly do you want us to do? How do we do this? So what we learned was that we were sharing all of this data, all these statistics about the benefits of collaboration, but we weren't sharing the stories. We weren't telling them examples of how exactly they could collaborate without just literally giving a donation to an organization. So we started collecting them. We started sharing all of these little kind of 60-second sound bites of examples of how they could collaborate with artists. So and information starts to feel really abstract and up here. We've got all these fantastic statistics. Those are really important, and we're not intending to replace that. But consider using a story to ground it in an example to enhance understanding. So with something like Shorthand, you can absolutely share all of that data, all of those statistics, but you can also help people understand with the story. So I've put two kind of resources at the bottom here. If you didn't get a chance to see this already, Janice Cornetti at our last national meeting shared a presentation called Using Storytelling in Professional Development. So the recording and handout are here. And I'm going to go ahead and share this Shorthand link so that you can click. Oh, yes. Sorry, Anne-Marie, I just saw your chat. And then there's an article here as well from the Bridgespan group where I grabbed that quote. And I think it'd be really relevant to education and policy folks. So I think that that would be helpful to you. So does anyone use storytelling in their work now? And would they be willing to share how they use it in their work? Or a good alternative to that question might be, how do you envision stories helping your work if you're not already using them? What stories could you collect?
Hi, Kelsey. This is Laura. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So I find that stories, as an educator, I was always grabbing, stories and sharing stories with families when talking through successes and helping them to have visuals of potential pathways for their child. And with families, I've always found stories are a great way to connect with groups, and especially larger groups of individuals. Our SPDG right now, we have families to the max, and story sharing and collecting of stories is always so important because the stories that families share, we can then go and share those with other people about the impact of our work or challenges that are occurring in the field at the time. So we might have data highlighting something statewide that's a concern, but it's the story of that one family member that makes that data really come to life. So I find a lot of our stories we can gather from families that are F to max. It's a great way of collecting some of those stories. And even with our current SPDG, we are always working with our LEA teams to highlight successes, because we can see the data, but once again, it's those stories that bring the data to life. So recently at one of our presentations that we provided was around a spaghetti dinner, where it was around Check and Connect, and bringing together families with the team around spaghetti. And it was really highlighting that even during COVID, the importance of coming together. And, we could show the data around Check and Connect and all of that, but the story really highlighted that the work was still occurring, that there was this unity and this coming together. So those are just a few examples of story sharing and also gathering that I wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. And perhaps now more than ever, it's really important to find safe ways to come together and find things that are working. So things like this digital platform and finding new ways to connect with people, I think is really important in the work that we do. And the way that we frame stories, so in fundraising, we used to use different examples. Say you get a fundraising letter requesting a donation that has a picture of some cute little kids, and it says, "This is Jimmy. Jimmy's having trouble learning how to read. Your $50 donation will go to buying this, this, and this, and it will help Jimmy thrive." You might get another fundraising letter from, let's say, an environmental organization saying, "Global climate change is happening now. People are suffering. Half of our country is on fires and wildfires. Other countries are dealing with all of these horrible floods. Please consider donating today." So those are both two very, very important causes, and we both know that. But one gives us a personal story that we can instantly connect to, and it gives us action that we can take where we feel like we're contributing to this person, and it will help. The other story might make us feel kind of hopeless. I might read that and think, I don't really know what throwing $50 at this situation is going to do. This feels like such a big problem that I can't really control. So narrowing down these big systemic problems into something that people can do and giving them an action step can be a really helpful way to frame our stories. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share about storytelling in their states?
Some of the districts in our rural areas in Colorado, Kelsey, have found a way to incorporate storytelling into their unified improvement plans, and to be able to connect with other districts in order to support them being able to tell that story, as well as the data and the growth that they're making. But it seems that storytelling is an important way to be able to share what's really all the pieces of what's happening for a community within a school. So I'm excited about learning this platform for that purpose.
Yeah, that's great, because there's so many different things going on, right? So to really encompass all of that, it can be hard in just qualitative terms and numbers, even though we need that. It's like one half of the puzzle.
Kelsey, I'm thinking too that, in this climate, the more we can humanize all that we do, whether it's collecting data or, new intervention, whatever it is, the more we can humanize that, I think the more we can keep, the community at large knowing that educators are humans and they, they need to be seen that way. We're not a system, and we're humans. Educators are humans. And I think that has to be part of our narrative, and so therefore, I think the storytelling really builds that opportunity to do that, no matter what we're doing, whether it's a small story like Laura was sharing, or, the bigger story, like this is what's happening across our SPDG, or this is what's happening across our state, whatever it is. I think that the story humanizes it.
Yes, 100%. So there's a lot of data about storytelling, building empathy amongst different groups. And it can help us find some common ground too. And like you said, Jackie, there are humans doing all of this really difficult work, and it's so easy for that to be hidden behind all this red tape and systems and everything. But it's actually just fellow human beings trying to do their best. So that's a really, really important thing for us to emphasize. Okay, and I wanted to throw in a little bit about visual communication in here, just because this is such a visual platform. So I would urge you to consider design as a tool to draw in engagement. Sometimes when we're learning a new thing and there's so many different options, we want to try all of the different options, which is great. But when it comes to a final project, sometimes simpler is a little bit better and clearer for the audience to understand. So we've got all of these elements, right? We've got color, shape, line, texture, space. In shorthand, we have interactive elements, like we can embed a YouTube video, a Padlet, audio. But really, I would encourage you to think about what would speak best to your specific audience and narrow down those tools that you're using. Remember to leave white space for the eye to rest on the page, and then think about what would stand out to you and what you want to draw attention to. So if I want to just focus on one specific element here, say color, and see what we want to shed a light on in this specific thing to tell your story. So keeping it as simple as possible helps you kind of control where the viewer's eye goes on the page, and that can be really helpful. So I listed a couple of other resources on that previous slide here. I'll put them on the chat as well. So Canva is a tool where you can create kind of infographics, images, things like that really easily. And there's a free version of it that I personally use. So I like to recommend tools that are accessible to all of us. An Unsplash is just a giant database of royalty-free images. So you might see if you start exploring shorthand and the examples that they have lots of different beautiful images, and we probably don't all have this giant image bank to work from. But the fact is we don't need it. We have, oh, thank you, Tracy. So we have Pixabay, we have Unsplash. There's a lot of different databases where we can share for educational purposes. Okay, and then the last note before we dive into the dashboard here, I wanted to talk a little bit about accessibility. So this is by no means a comprehensive list of things that will make your story accessible, but what it is some quick, easy ways that you can make it instantly more accessible. So there's things that are really easy to do. The first one is title your story. You'll see that when you go to make a story, you'll have a big blank box where it will say, enter your title here, enter a title there, and boom, you're already a little bit more accessible. So what shorthand is doing is they're using headers, just like Word. Is everyone familiar with how to use headers in Word to make Word documents more accessible to screen readers? I see one thumbs up.
Mhm.
Okay. I think I don't see any head shaking, but you can jump in as well if you're unsure. So shorthand makes this, in my opinion, even a little bit simpler than Word, because the headers are already kind of embedded in a specific way. The title will automatically be that H1, heading 1. And then as you go through and make subheadings, kind of like up here, uses for shorthand, visual communication, accessibility, those are often in templates automatically labeled as H2. So when a screen reader goes to scan through the screen, it will automatically jump to those. So make sure you fill those out in a way that makes sense. If you have a subheading for H2 that you want to do, make sure that it's in that H2 box. But largely shorthand has that done for you. So it's just a matter of making sure you're utilizing it correctly. And most of us probably know to add alt text to images, but be sure to do that as well. Anytime you upload an image, shorthand will give you a little box where you can enter that alt text. And finally, this is outside of Shorthand's capacity because you're going into a third-party platform when you post things like a video from YouTube, for example. But you're going to want to be sure that it is captioned or transcribed or something that will show people that are hard of hearing what is being said or shared in the video. And here are a couple of resources you'll see. The color contrast determinator is, I think, a really interesting one. I personally find that I have to double check myself or the contrast isn't high enough for everyone. So what this does is you can enter in a hex number or an RGB number here, and it will show you the number, that color contrast ratio. So for larger text, which in Shorthand, most of our text is pretty large because it's kind of a presentation, easy to read platform, you'll want this to be at least 3. For smaller text, like say it's smaller than 18-point fonts, you'll want this to be 4.5 or larger. And this makes it really easy because it'll give you the little smiley face or the little frowny face, depending on if you're accessible or not. So that's an easy way to do it. And you can always mess with different colors to see what's going on there. The other thing is the Shorthand accessibility checklist. So Shorthand has a huge amount of help documents. So if you have a question, there's a 95% chance that it's probably in here. They did build an accessibility checklist. So you'll see the first thing is that headings that I discussed before. And some of this will apply to if you're entering your own HTML or own code, which may or may not apply for you depending on how complicated you're getting with your story. But it would be really helpful, I think, to go over this, to just do a quick double check yourself to make sure. And the other tool that I recently learned about is Lighthouse. Is anyone familiar with Lighthouse? I found out about it, I think, yesterday.
Is it Lighthouse for the Blind or a different Lighthouse?
I think a different one. It's a Google Chrome, something built in on Google Chrome.
Definitely didn't know about it.
But it may help those that aren't sighted folks. So on Mac, you're going to hit, I learned a keystroke for this and I had to write it down. Option Command J, and I can put these instructions in the chat too. Can you see the window that pops up on the side of my screen when I do that? Yes, okay, good. I wasn't sure if that would be hidden or not. So when you do that, and then for Windows, you just hit F12. I'll put those both in the chat in a moment too. Click Lighthouse. Then you can generate an accessibility report, either mobile or desktop. So it's going to give you a quick scan. None of these will be comprehensive, but it'll highlight little things that we may not have think of or that you may have missed. So it's giving me a 94%. So it's probably pretty accessible, but there's a few things I could probably look at. They're suggesting that background and foreground colors, there might be some text in here that isn't high enough contrast. And then these frames, so I think what it's referring to here is my custom, like the Mentimeter. And then at the below here, you'll see that I built in a Padlet. So this is custom HTML from another website, and it may not have included a title for a screen reader in there. So anytime you're bringing in other code, it might not be as accessible of a platform. So that's something to consider as well. And if you have any questions about adding those titles, I'm by no means super savvy with code, but I'm happy to help you figure that out and work it out. Usually it's relatively simple to add a small title detail in there. Oh, and yes, this will be free to use for all SPDG projects. So you all have access to this for free. Are there any questions with what I went over so far? I know that's a lot of information.
This is Annette. My burning question is I always feel I am a failure at when I put images and giving that descriptor. I try to keep it succinct because, I have played with, the free screen readers so you can hear what's coming back. but then I feel like, I'm not saying enough. Is there a magic way to write those that really someone is pinpointed is the best?
Oh, that's a good question. And I don't know that I have a good answer, but
That's
the person that would
okay.
have a better answer for me. So I'm gonna ask one of my coworkers that relies on a screen reader her opinion on that.
Oh, thank you.
Of course. I know that things like Word will automatically generate an alt text if you don't put one in. And sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not. You know, it's like an algorithm that's kind of doing its best. I don't know that those are ideal, or if it's just something that's auto-filling in if we're not doing that. So I would love to follow up with you on that because I'm not sure. But I also have the same thing. Anytime I'm putting in a background image or something, I'm wondering how much detail do I put it? How much is too much where, you know, it's a little bit unwieldy, or how much is not really being inclusive and giving them that description that they need. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and you can actually, this is a functioning Padlet within the story, so you can go in there, but it is a little small. So I'm gonna go ahead and share a link to this Padlet. Let's give maybe 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes. And I hope to hear about what you would like to learn in shorthand, what you've seen within my shorthand story or the newsletters, or while you were playing with shorthand on your own that you would like to understand better, so that I can dive into the dashboard in a way that most helps you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my video for a moment so that you can complete this Padlet. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a moment here. And because I'm hearing a lot about I should say a lot about examples, I wanted to share this featured stories link. And so what this is shorthands, stories they want to show off of people using their products. So you see a lot of things here. They range from really involved to really simple. There's one here that I'll share with you, and I'm choosing it because I think that it's simple, but it's still really powerful. It's really, that's what I think I'm hearing from the Padlet. So you'll see it has a really basic background image, kind of the hashtag, call to action. And these are pretty simple pages, right? But this just one quote on a big blank screen has some power. Then all of a sudden you're really paying attention to that quote. So it can be that simple to get your audience's attention. You'll see they've shared a YouTube video, and I'll show you a little bit about embedding HTML in a moment too. And showing interviews, which is an idea I didn't have before, but I think that actually could be really useful. And a good way to tell people's story is to encourage them to share it with their own words. You'll see at the end, they kind of did this transformation. I think that's probably the most complicated thing that they featured in this. So I'm going to go to the story editor here and share a little bit. So is there anyone that doesn't have a shorthand login right now that needs one? Okay, and if you learn that you do need one, you feel free to shoot me a message in the chat or an email, anything like that. You'll see that you're divided into teams according to state. So no one other than myself and your state can see your stories until they're published. So I want you to feel free to just dive in and experiment and try all of the things when it comes to shorthand. And you don't have to publish, you don't have to show it until you're ready to, but really, I think this is a platform where you'll learn just by trying and doing. So to create a new story, you'll click New Story. You probably won't see this option because you'll be in one team. And I would encourage you to start with a blank story, just because it's the most basic template you can have. So if you're ever in doubt of how to go about editing anything, just hover over different things, because this, you'll see that if I hover, it'll tell me different sizes, it'll tell me different alignments. If I highlight the text, it'll go through all my text things. I can change the color, add annotation, add a link. You'll see that here's add your title, and you'll see that it's labeled H1. And that it won't let you change that. So it's already set as your title heading 1 automatically. And anywhere you see this green button with the image, you can change the media there. So some people do videos in the background. You can do as simple as an image as well. And then you'll see a lot of different options to add a section. So each page is referred to as a section, and you can have up to 25 of them in shorthand. The reason why they do 25 is because after that, people tend to lose engagement. It gets a little bit too long. So that's just a little push to keep your stories brief. But it doesn't have to be 25. It can be 2, it can be 5, whatever you really need to tell your story. So I'm going to show you one of the more basic layouts, and then maybe a trick for one of the more complex ones, or one of the ones that I should say looks a little bit more complex. This is a text layout. So I can add text here to label it for myself. If I check the box that says add to navigation, it's in this kind of table of contents at the top, and someone can click it to jump to that page. And then you can hover, so it'll autofill some kind of font for you. You can add, here's your heading 2, 3, and 4. So if you want to add a chapter or a subheading, you can do that here. You'll also see things like bullets. You'll see that you can add images. And here's that rich text embed. So this is actually super easy if you want an interactive YouTube video, Instagram image, Twitter feed, just about anything. Any of these, all you have to do is share the link. So if it's a YouTube link, you'll paste the link there and it will appear here for you, and the viewer will be able to click play and watch it within it. And then the other option is HTML. So Kaylee, if you're still here, do you know if MailChimp you mentioned, if they have like a rich text embed option, if you can get a little HTML code from them?
Hey, Kelsey, yeah, I'm still here. I can't say for sure. I haven't used that feature. If so, we just kind of started implementing using MailChimp to send out communications within the last couple of months. And so I'm still just playing around with templates and stuff, but I can look into it. And what specifically, like what language would I look for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if we go to our Padlet, when I click share here, there's usually something that says embed on your website. It might say WordPress embed because that's such a popular one. And you'll usually see these two little arrows. So when I click this in Padlet, it gives me a few different options for code. And all this is we don't have to really know what this means. We just have to copy and paste it. And I copied this and pasted it into my story. So that's how I got a little interactive version of this. So,
okay, and then does Padlet have that ability then going the other way?
That's
or
a good
sorry,
question.
not Padlet, Shorthand. Would Shorthand allow you to copy the HTML and potentially?
Yeah, so Shorthand, I don't believe would allow you to go into MailChimp. Yeah, I think you could link it. So the best that I've come up with, and you'll see this in our newsletters too, is I'll share a screenshot of our Shorthand story, and then you can click that image and go to the story. But it will only publish in one specific place. So we can't really embed it within a MailChimp, to my knowledge. I'm going to check on that, but I think that's the sense that I've gotten the last time I checked in about that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to show you that is a simple thing to change is anytime you edit media, it'll give you these automatic kind of sizes. So if you go into a program like Canva, which is completely free, you just make an account, you can click create a design, custom size, and then you can just enter in that size that Shorthand has given you. So you can create an image that is the exact size that you need. So you know it'll fit perfectly and everything like that. So I think that's a really useful tool. And if I can get back here, there we go. The other section that I wanted to show you today is a scroll. And this is just something nice that kind of looks very sleek and professional, but it's really not that hard to set up. So those are my favorite things, the things that are actually easy, but it looks really nice. So as you scroll through this page, you'll see kind of the images change, they kind of fade. So this is two images, these last two, where it goes from black and white to color. So if I click on that image, you'll see these two images here, the black and white and the color one. So let's say I went to Pixabay, I went to Unsplash, and I got some beautiful image that I want to use. So I threw a photo in here. So if we have it in Canva, you can just click on the image, click edit image, and you'll see all of these options for filters, different colors. I clicked on the sepia tone one. So now I have two different images, kind of a black and white sepia tone and a color one. So I can save both of these. I can have my sepia tone here, my color one here. And that's really all that you need to make that fancy looking transition. So it's really, really far more basic than I think one might think, which is really what I like about this platform. It looks really nice, but it's actually really quick and simple to use. And while there's a lot of different options for pages, they're all pretty much set up the same way. You can hover over things, you can change the image. You can do the same kind of edits in all of these here. They'll have all of the same options. Anytime you see an image, you'll see that option. So you can delete them all and have just one image, or you can add multiple images here. So really, the goal is to have a platform that's easy to make things look professional and simple. And I see some people that need a login, so I'm happy to go ahead and do that. Are there any other questions about everything we went over today? I feel like that's a lot of little tidbits of information. And I know that that can be a difficult way to pick up on things. So I would really encourage you to kind of dive in. I'm here as a resource. So if you have any questions, I hope next time people will bring some projects so that we can dig in. My hope is that we can kind of share and learn the platform together and learn how to best share our stories. Are there any questions right now?
So if we have signed in to Shorthand, Kelsey, that's how we got your email for this particular session today. Is that correct?
That's a good question. So not exactly. So if you got an email from me, you've indicated interest in it.
Okay.
But you do need to, Shorthand will send you an automated email once I add yours, and then you'll need to make an account. I think you do have one, but I can double check here.
Yeah, will you double check it? Because I'm pretty sure I did, but it was a little while ago. So I just want to make sure that I did it with my work email, I hope.
Sure. Yes, I see you in here. So you are all signed up.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Of course. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save this chat so that I know who still needs that login. And immediately following this, I'll get that login sent to you. If you don't see it right away, bear in mind, because it's an automated email from Shorthand, it's really prone to getting filtered into those spam and junk email folders. So I would check those as well. But if you still don't see it, contact me and we can always troubleshoot.
Kelsey, this is Annette. I have a question. Obviously,
Sure.
I'm going to love your knowledge. And is the best way for you to spend a couple of minutes with me to make you a collaborator within my Shorthand, or to send you a personal email?
Oh, that's a good question. Go ahead and send me an email. So as an admin, I'll be able to see everyone's stories on all the different teams.
Perfect.
So I can see the draft, so I'll know what you're talking about if you email me a question.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
I have a question, Kelsey. So we will have further workshops to continue learning together. Is that what's going to be set up after this? And
that's correct. Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, so seems like it's quieting down a little bit, but if you do have that question, of course, as we all do as soon as we end the workshop, feel free to send me an email. Feel free to contact me at any time. I'm always here to help. And I just absolutely love building visual things. that's really what I feel like my forte is. So I'm more than happy to help with any of this. Okay, and I will send you a recording of this as well for reference. And you'll also get a follow-up email with that list of all those different resources I was sharing. So just in case one of those will be helpful to you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, thank you.
That was great, Kelsey. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Jennifer.
Good to see you. Bye.
Goodbye.